Welcome to the Source of Commercial Real Estate, where we discuss all things commercial real estate, including finding and funding deals, market intel, finding a competitive advantage, and using real estate to live the life that you want. I am your host, Jonathan Hayek, and today I am talking with Franco Perez with Franco Mobile Homes. Having grown up in a family with an unstable housing situation, Franco is on a mission to create affordable housing in Silicon Valley. He discovered that the Bay Area's mobile home parks offer an abundance of underused land with great growth potential. After years of dedication to his vision, Franco has established a devoted team of like-minded individuals who believe that their positive impact equals success. Franco's talented team strives to unlock the pathway to homeownership and help families establish financial security where it might otherwise seem impossible. Franco enjoys videography, showcasing some of his favorite local restaurants and local small businesses, and promoting San Jose's unique culture to the world. I can also attest that Franco has a fantastic YouTube channel showcasing that videography that listeners should definitely check out. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. Franco, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the amazing intro. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, really looking forward to this discussion. Happy to have you. Why don't we start out with you telling us about your background? You have a really interesting and compelling story. So tell us about your background, how you got started in real estate, and what your work looks like today.
Yeah, I guess moved over here from a young age in the Philippines and moved to the Silicon Valley. I had both my parents at the time. We had an unfortunate situation where my dad was the main breadwinner. They divorced. I was in a situation where I had to leave school, start working full time, just so that I can afford paying for rent at the end of every single month. And I remember how broke we were. I was borrowing money even from my boss at the time just to keep up with rental payments. And I remember how hard it was. And I just kept thinking to myself, why is it this difficult? I feel like we're great people. I feel like we do good for the world. And why is it that we have to go through these hard pains, right? And going through that really kind of helped me make a lot of realizations about housing and opportunities for everyone. But from there, I got into being a real estate agent. I did that for a short period of time. I ended up not liking it because I found it to be a place where I was just helping the wealthiest people I can help get the most expensive homes that I can get. But I really wanted to find a way to help people that were in my shoes back then, that really didn't have opportunity to get out of this rental rat race. So I looked at several different options, and I accidentally came across mobile homes, and finding out that there's over 4,000 mobile home parks in this country, and they're spread throughout many metro areas. So we built a business around helping people get out of the rental rat race and start their home ownership journey through mobile homes. And then that became great. And then we started converting a lot of old mobile homes into beautiful 1,600 square foot homes and in great locations. And that's kind of how we got here today.
Franco, I want to ask you about those early years of first coming to the United States. So you're an immigrant from the Philippines, and you came over at a young age, and you and your parents moved to one of the most expensive areas of the country. So tell me about, that transition from the Philippines to, I mean, it's such a stark transition going from the Philippines to such an affluent area in Silicon Valley. So, can you tell me a little bit about what you remember about that time growing up in such an expensive area?
Yeah, that's such a good point because it was such a big contrast. I actually lived in a very poor area in the Philippines, and I remember how life was there. We have kids that weren't able to go to school because they were selling candy or cigarettes to people on the streets, and then moving to California, right? And that was a big culture shock. Over in the Philippines, everyone's super grateful for what they have, super happy, and they're hardworking and do anything to kind of just get by. And then we moved to California, and it was very different. But Um, to tell you a bit about kind of how that happened, that transition happened, when we moved from the Philippines, we were actually, me, my mom, my dad, and my younger sister, we were we were sharing one small bedroom of someone's house, and we were renting it from them as they were working on getting their immigration paperwork and that sort of thing. And I remember how hardworking they were. You know, I think we often forget how great of a country this is. You know, there's so many people that fight to just be in our country because of for opportunities of better workplace and that sort of thing. And I mentioned that because in the Philippines, it's actually very, very difficult to go from poverty into ever, being a huge success. And unfortunately, now in this world, that's kind of getting stripped away slowly and slowly too. And that's why I kind of really fight for housing being really that bridge to get us from poverty to the wealthy. But as far as that goes, it was a culture shock. We worked our way from renting a room and seeing all of that happen. It was a big culture shock, and from there, um, we were able to survive renting in this area. I don't know why we chose San Jose or Milpitas area. I couldn't tell you that much. I don't really remember though.
Well, Franco, I want to get a little more info on your business model right now. So you're involved in mobile homes. Are you a park owner? Are you a broker? Are you an investor? Tell me what Franco Mobile Homes is.
It's kind of a mix of all three. So it kind of started with, it really started with realizing that there's not a lot of, there's a lot of agents that want to help wealthy people. It's like almost an abundance of real estate agents. And I found that there's not enough people wanting to help people that can barely afford real estate. So I came across that realization, and I wanted to build something that would really just service the middle class and service those people that are on the edge that can't afford real estate yet, and then help them make that little bit of an edge. So we started a brokerage team model where we have agents that really specifically only help with getting people out of renting into mobile home ownership, and then people that are living in mobile homes, how do they get out of selling their mobile home and then start their real estate ownership journey. So through that, learned a lot about how this is really helping a lot of people. There's a lot of bad myths about how these and bad information out there that these homes depreciate, they're bad investments and that sort of thing. But we're finding out that it's far from true. And, people are able to build their wealth that way. So we give a lot of advice that way on the brokerage side. And then the second to that is we are, in a way, kind of a home improvement company. We help people understand the numbers of their home. There's a lot of these old single wide mobile homes or even double wide mobile homes that were built in the 70s, but they're in prime location. Keep in mind that these parks, whether it's the Bay Area or LA or San Diego, we have parks that are like right across from great jobs, from great schools, but there's low quality homes. Not to bash on people that live in these because that might be their best option at that time, but there are people that might want these homes improved. So what we do now is we find someone's 700 square foot single wide home, and we realize since it was built in the 70s, they didn't really care about optimizing the land, and we analyze that lot and we're like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, it seems like you can actually fit a 1,600 square foot. You can turn your one bedroom home into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, spend X amount, and in return, you'll be able to live in a higher quality home. And when you sell later down the line, you're actually going to make more than what you've spent on replacing your old home with a new home. And that's kind of what we've been doing heavily now. And that model's been, it took our first prototype at the time when we started our business. It was very difficult to get investors to understand and to believe in investing in mobile homes. And then now we're doing that over and over and repeatedly building several homes for these. And then only recently have we started doing park ownership consulting, and then also helping with people that are opening mobile home parks and that sort of thing too.
Okay, so it sounds like on the one side, you've got a brokerage team where you're working with homeowners and you're advising them and potentially connecting sellers with buyers. And then you also have a home improvement company where you're meeting with owners that maybe have an older home, and you're advising them to say, "Hey, you can have potentially a bigger home." And are you buying the home from that old single wide, or are you acting as more of a builder or a contractor saying, "Hey, if you'd like to get a larger 3 bed 2 bath home, I can take care of everything." And maybe they pay a single fee, and you take care of everything, the purchase, the moving, the setting up. Do I have that right?
You have that right on the second part. So we don't do anything as far as buying the old one or anything like that.
Okay.
We actually end up demolishing it most of the time, and um, so in rebuilding from there. So we do act more as a contractor slash builder. Essentially, we kind of help them from A to Z. So from the point of analyzing if this is feasible and makes sense for them, and then we help them with the financing. We help them with the conversion, the construction, all the way to when they move into their newer home.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you about. I guess I don't want to overlook the fact that this is a very expensive area, and mobile home parks, there's often a stigma associated with mobile home parks, and so your life is sort of this life of contrasts. So you live in this expensive area, and however you work in this asset class that is associated with this stigma is often associated with um, low cost of living. We know the stigma is associated with mobile homes and mobile home parks. So, can you talk a little bit about overcoming the stigma of mobile home parks in such an affluent area?
Yeah, so I guess the first thought to mention is that our most people's assumptions and associations with mobile home parks are really only from the movies or TV or the media, right? We often see Breaking Bad or Eminem music videos where we see if it's associated with mobile home parks, this must be like the poorest place. It must be filled with criminals. It must be a horrible place to live. Now, just like in apartments, there's apartment complexes that are you don't want your kids running around, but there's also luxury style apartments, and there's a full contrast. And there's the same thing with mobile home parks. They all shouldn't be written off as this very poor, low poverty, low quality people, low quality home and community. So that's the first thing. And then the other is understanding the associations with value. Because of that's everyone's perceptions, we it's very easy to fall into feeling like, hey, these are probably bad investments, these are not a place you want to live, and nobody really has a reason to drive into these communities unless they know someone that lives there or live there already themselves. So those are kind of a lot of associations that are very false. And also on the financial side, we have a lot of myths like, hey, these homes depreciate in value, they're poor quality built. And that's exactly why we work hard on our YouTube channel to really showcase how these homes are built. We showcase how beautiful these communities look with spas and swimming pools and gyms in these mobile home parks. And then we also showcase the numbers of that our clients are getting as well. Hey, they bought it at this amount. It's appreciated 15% in 2 years, and they've been able to exit and sell to purchase a piece of real estate. And, we love it is a hard stigma that we always have to face. But, through the passion of seeing this actually help people, we really want to put out and show people that, hey, this is an example where this helped this teacher be able to stay in this expensive city of San Jose. And this is an example of somebody that had a growing family that wanted to stay in the area as well. And we love kind of showcasing that through it's still a battle that we face all the time of this false stigma, but that's why we love putting stuff out there and being on great shows like yours.
So let me give you the opportunity to debunk a myth that I personally have. And you touched on it, and that's the idea that mobile homes go down in value. I'm a real estate investor. I've never owned a mobile home, but that's one of the reasons that I've shied away from mobile homes is because the the logic that I've always heard is that mobile homes in 5 years from now, that mobile home is going to be worth less than what it's worth today. You're telling me, at least in your market, that mobile homes are actually increasing in value. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, correct. So basically, yeah, a lot of this advice and these dynamics and what we do too are more relevant to these high density areas. And it's not just California, it's like Austin, it's Atlanta, and that sort of thing, right? So it all comes down to the cost of housing, and then also which ties to the cost of what are their alternatives? How much would they be paying to rent a home? What's the difference between renting and home ownership, right? So these are big differences. Like I think it's important to mention this part as well, is like the dynamic in high density areas. Our area is probably the highest or high area compared to most of the country, but the dynamic of the ratios kind of makes sense similarly. So in San Jose, renting a one bedroom, one bath apartment, you're looking at about $3,500 a month. And then to purchase, if someone was ever dreaming of purchase a single family home, the median purchase price is about $1.6 million, right? How do you ever dream of owning a piece of real estate if your family's never owned one before, if you have to save up a huge $200,000 payment, whatever it is, I'm sorry, a $200,000 down payment and pay like an $8,000 mortgage, right? It's all about the steps in between. And what we've found is that mobile homes are a perfect hybrid and a step in between because, you actually have elements and benefits that you can get out of home ownership. You get the appreciation, the equity, the tax benefits, and you get to pay down something. You get to leverage a loan to pay down something that you own. Yes, you still are paying a big portion for space rent, which is about a third of the payment, but at least 2/3 of that is going towards something that you get to own, right? So in our area, an average newer 3 bedroom, two bath home is about $330,000. Their down payment, instead of a huge six digit down payment of 200K, now their down payment would only look like about 35,000, which is much more attainable. And then their payment in total would look about $3,500 as well. So about $1,000 a month on space rent, and then about $2,500 a month on their mortgage, right? So they're pretty much making an equivalent payment that they would to renting an apartment, just shifting that model into a mobile home ownership. Now you are still paying a lot rent, but that rent is much lower than a guaranteed rent payment if you're renting somewhere else. And then with that being brought up, as real estate prices are getting crazier and crazier or increasing, now people are willing to make these differences in options. How do I say this? I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather my thought again on what I said. But now people are realizing that mobile homes are actually better builds. I can get a brand new home and that sort of thing. And these communities are actually pretty great. And I get to live in a great school area, in a great job area, close to food or whatever it is. And all I have to do is make a down payment of this and make a payment of this, and it makes my life better. Now we're starting to see these as a much more feasible option, a much more considered option. And whether it's, I know these numbers I mentioned are very big, but these models also working in places like Atlanta where, that could be half of all the costs that I've said. But, we know that every market's a little bit different.
Thanks for sharing those numbers and going into detail. So I think earlier you had mentioned average single family home price in your areas like 1.6 million. You just said maybe average price for a mobile home is 330K. And so the numbers, even if you're paying lot rent, the numbers still make a ton of sense for the average middle income person in America. Are you seeing any difference in the types of people interested in mobile homes now? The thought that I have in my mind is people, maybe older people, people on limited incomes. Are you seeing that change at all? Are you seeing a shift in demographics starting to consider mobile homes now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we see people incoming into the mobile home space from both sides. I'd say we have a lot of boomers that have their kids moved out. They have a single family home. They want to retire, and they want something that's less maintenance. And then they can find that they can downsize, sell their single family home or rent it out, and then purchase a mobile home like this, have much less of a home to maintain, and then also a much more reasonable payment and less property taxes to pay as well. And then we also see a lot of people that are at their entry level of ownership, which is like a family that is really just trying to build them up from the bottom to try to start owning something. And then this becomes like now their new first step into it. But only until recently are we starting to see a lot of millennial buyers. We have a lot of these tech, a lot of the people that live in these communities work at Google, at Samsung, at Apple, these, and they're realizing that, hey, to be honest, they're kind of unfortunately being squeezed into very limited options. We get a lot of people that I'm sick of renting. I'm sick of paying rent and spending over 40K a year and not getting any benefits of that back. And, it's like, what is the alternative? I have to be here because of work. And this is an option that I should consider. So we're starting to see a lot more of younger generations getting into this. And then mixed with that is a lot of these associations and bad associations and thoughts about mobile homes are actually not as strong when it comes to younger generations like Gen Z or millennials. They don't feel that like ugh, about mobile homes. So they're more open-minded, right? And they see this as a great option. And we actually, a lot of, if you've seen the homes that we build too, we really cater them to millennials. We create very open entertainment spaces, like these big 12-foot high ceilings where the kitchen, living room, and dining room are all in the same space. And then we have a lot of smart tech, like cameras, smart door keypads and thermostats and that sort of stuff as well.
I want to talk more about the homes that you're putting into these spaces. You've got a couple great videos on your YouTube channel. The one uh, that I'm thinking of right now is where you're taking video of a new home being put into a space, and there's this specialized truck that's maneuvering this giant home through this established park, and you do a great job of explaining exactly what's happening, what the truck is doing. Okay, what challenge is the driver facing right now? How's the driver going to get this giant home through this neighborhood into this space? You do a great job in that video, and others too. Tell me about the new homes that you're putting into these spaces. Some of them are super contemporary looking, and the interior photos, they look like traditional single family homes, which I think would adds to the attractiveness for millennials or just younger buyers, people that have a certain idea of what a mobile home is. Low ceilings and tiny bathtubs and panels on the walls, things like that. So tell me about what a contemporary mobile home looks like that you're putting into these parks.
Yeah. So um, it's really, we really try to push the limits of these, and I do a lot of advocacy for how homes should be built, how we build, how do we keep this quality, because we have these bad stigmas. We really go over the top of what's possible just to show that wow factor of how contemporary we can go. I did a lot of lobbying. Like I was at Washington D.C. a few weeks ago, really showcasing to senators and entities about how beautiful these homes are built. But just to paint the picture, we have this monoslope home that we built. It's a 12-foot high ceilings with windows, with very tall windows and that sort of thing. And you have, 12-foot flat. I mean, we have a 12-foot flat ceiling, which is actually at a slope. I don't want to mislead anyone that it's completely 12 foot all the way across. And when you're in this home, I find that pictures aren't enough. And that's why I love the video side of it. If you see the video where we have this, it's such a beautiful space. And we have quartz waterfall islands where it with stainless steel appliances and really amazing finishes. Like you said, there's no more paneling. It's all drywall. We have laminate floors and wood floors throughout. And it really makes it that comfy and also modern home look, right? We have standalone tubs with a separate option for the showers as well. I honestly think, you said it looks like a traditional home. I honestly believe that when you look at these homes, they're far nicer than most of the average homes that are being built. But I'd allow for you to check it out yourself. And we really push those limits, and we are still working on pushing those limits even further to make it as contemporary and as sexy as we can, to be honest.
It seems like there's an obvious opportunity here, particularly in higher cost of living areas. It seems like everywhere is becoming more and more expensive to live. And local politicians and policymakers there's only so much that they can do to limit the cost of housing. There are interesting things that are happening in some cities to try to make it affordable for people like teachers and police officers and firefighters. This seems like an obvious way to make housing affordable for average people. When you're talking about the cost of these being a fourth of what an average single family home would be in the area. Are you meeting resistance from local people that you're improving mobile home parks? I'm sure there are people locally that would rather see the mobile home park raised and multi-million dollar homes be put in its place. You mentioned going to Washington, D.C. That seems really smart because people in D.C. want affordable housing. They have no solutions, but this seems like a possible solution to the affordable housing crisis. So talk to me about if you're seeing resistance or if you're seeing optimism from stakeholders and policymakers.
Yeah, if I could, I'd love to talk about the problem a bit. One is these. We're at a big shortage of housing, and the cost of constructing these homes are very, very high, and we don't see it lowering for any reason. Keep in mind that most of our labor that are building these homes are actually 45 and over, and these people are going to retire soon. They're at the age where they want to retire and stop working, and we don't have young millennials or Gen Z that are excited about doing construction for these homes. So we're facing a huge problem where we need a ton of housing. We need to build housing to keep housing affordable, and materials are getting more expensive. Labor's becoming shorter and more expensive, and it's a huge problem that's gonna bite us sooner or later, and it's biting us now, right? And we need to innovate on how we build housing. We need new ways on keeping homes affordable. And I want to put this analogy out there too, is that cars originally were only built for the wealthy and only attainable by the rich and wealthy. It was only until they started building these homes differently on an assembly line that they were able to build these more effectively and more efficiently so that everyone in our country could afford a car, right? And that's exactly what's happening here when we're building these homes. And if you'd see on our video, these are now being built in factories. This is the new way of how we can build not just housing, but apartment complexes, hotels, this modular style build. We're building these in a controlled environment at a rapid rate, right? And with that, we get a lot of pros too. We use less material. We lower the cost of the material. We also get much more output for the people that are working on these homes, which keeps the homes very, very affordable in any area. Um, Now we're building these out of an assembly line, and from start to finish, if you're in these factories, we're having a home starting with the steel I-beams all the way to the end of when it's completed in like 8 days. To build a home, right? And to put into contrast, like building a home like that on a regular piece of land takes months, like around 8 months or so, right? But because it's on an assembly line and we have machines, we have people that are there with tools that are very effective, we're able to build at a much faster and cheaper rate. So that is one big thing that I want people to understand. The other is the yes, we do face entities that don't understand mobile home parks. They don't take the time to realize how this helps society. And there's some areas where they're like, hey, we want to close these down, build redeveloped apartments for rent or whatever it is. And, that's why I'm very passionate about showcasing how beautiful mobile home parks and mobile homes are actually, and how much it is a need. It's really the last stand for affordable housing, and we have to protect these. We have to protect it because it's an opportunity for a teacher or someone of lower income to be able to start their home ownership journey versus an apartment complex that maybe they try to pitch that it's a low income housing by saying it's a reduced rent building, but there's no ownership element of it. And it's not actually helping a lot of people get out of that rat race as well. There's, to be honest, so many things that I can talk about of how this really helps the regular people. But those are probably the two strongest that I wanted to bring up.
You've talked about kind of having a hand in the development and the construction process. You've got a great video on your YouTube channel of being inside a factory where these homes are being built. Do you do any consulting or advising of the manufacturers, the home manufacturers? Because you had talked about, nice finishes inside the home, quartz, waterfall countertops. Do you do any consulting or advising to the manufacturers? How involved are you in the actual construction process of these homes?
Yeah, we're very involved with that and with the finishes and that sort of thing. There's a lot of different, and mind you, every area has its own different priorities, right? Some areas we're able to do great, beautiful finishes, like in California. However, in like Texas, we're all about effectiveness of getting this done so that somebody can own this home, right? So we are very involved in that. I'm very involved in kind of like, hey, how do we keep the cost low? If we commit to purchasing 100 appliances, it's much easier to get a discount and negotiate with appliance entities. And it's the same with windows, with doors and materials, right? Because we have economies of scale, we're able to keep these costs low. And I'm not going to say I'm directly involved with the factories themselves, but we help with that as much as we can. Anything that will really keep these costs effective.
Makes a lot of sense. Franco, we are heading towards the tail end of our conversation here. I have a few more questions that I ask almost all of our guests. Want to see how you respond. Tell me about the best deal that you've done, either the best deal or an ideal deal. What's a perfect scenario for you with what you're doing?
Oh man. So it's interesting you say that question because I feel like most of the listeners would want to hear like dollars and cents. But for me, my best deal is always the ones where I see a family that felt like they were never going to be able to own something. And I still tear up today when I see this family, so grateful and so thankful for having their first piece of home ownership, and it gives me goosebumps right now, like thinking about that. And to me, like we just helped a family that it was actually another immigrant family that never was that was renting and wanted to get a step ahead. But it's moments like that, to me, I would define as best, and to me drives me to want to work harder to make more success situations like that. I know most people are driven for the money side, but I would consider that those cases my best deals.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And if you're working towards your mission and you have a sustainable business model, the money's going to come. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have your mission first, and then the profits will follow. Franco, what's your top tip for finding deals or finding clients? How are you connecting with people to generate more business?
I'd say, and you mentioned it a lot on in the beginning, is my top advice is really to use video. I found, that's relative to my situation because the problem that we're trying to solve is facing these stigmas, and video has really helped us put stuff out there and bringing valuable free education out there and free information, and showcasing people what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we are and what these homes are like. If your business, or whether it's commercial, residential, or whatever, show your expertise. Don't be afraid. I think with older generations and older businesses, I find this energy of, we need to keep our secrets in our trade, the way we do business, very secretive. And as I see more younger entrepreneurs, we start to see people that are willing to share what they do. Yes, might be flaws of people stealing your idea, but guess what? There's tons of pros that can help get you business. If you don't put your name out there, nobody's going to know about you. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I
I,
connect with that. It comes down to having an abundance mindset. That
absolutely.
there are plenty of deals for everyone, and just because you share a strategy with somebody doesn't mean that person is going to go out and steal all of your business. So love that abundance
Far
mindset.
more pros than cons.
Sure. What I don't know if you raise capital. If you do, what's your top tip for raising capital and connecting with investors?
Man, so I'm not raising capital at this moment, but it reminds me of my first few deals. It was really, I'll try to keep this short, but getting people to invest in mobile homes was the hardest thing on my first few deals. It was the most difficult. And I must have asked like 100+ investors. Um, but then, how do I say this? Because my concept was so new, I had to give up all the profit plus some. I was very negative on my first two deals, and I guess my best advice is to sometimes be comfortable with working for free, or even working for at a cost, because once you can prove that you've done a deal, once you can show that you've been involved with a successful deal, guess what? It makes it easier for that second or third investor to invest with you, right? And once you can prove that what you're doing is feasible and makes sense and actually can come out successful, it's so much easier to be able to say, hey, this is what I did. It worked out for this person. These are the numbers of exactly how it panned out. This is the number of offers we got. This is why you should work with me on this next deal, right? And I think we are afraid to work on things and not be profitable and not make money sometimes. But that, I think, is something to be said.
I'll add another one based on what I heard you say, and it's a theme that I heard throughout our conversation today, and that's perseverance. So if you're talking to, 100 investors, or at least lots of investors, and hearing no time after time after time, and you keep going. A lot of people would give up even after the first no. But you heard no lots of times, and yet you persevered and you continued working for free. I mean, it's a great strategy that I've heard. I've heard other investors talk about is your first couple deals you might not make any money on, but you're building a track record. And it's hard and it's discouraging to work for free and do stuff and spend lots of time and energy on it and not have a tangible monetary reward from it. But it's an investment and it pays dividends. And so I just see your story and your business model as a model of perseverance. So I think that's awesome, Franco.
Ah, thanks, man.
Um, Finally, what is there a book, a podcast, a YouTube channel, some resource that has been influential to you that you'd recommend listeners check out?
Oh man, there's so many. The huh. One of my favorite books is Blue Ocean Strategy. I think, if you want to become a business owner or create an impact in some sort of way, it's very easy to chase what's attractive and what's great. And sometimes if you come to read that book, it helps you realize like, hey, where can I or how can I have a strategy that can help us grow in a place that's a need and also that doesn't have so much attention. So I
Franco,
think that's my favorite.
this has been a great conversation. I love your mission. I love what you're about. I love that you're about something more than just profits, that you have a unique and compelling background and a story, and you want to positively impact other people like you. If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, where do you want to send people?
All of our links are at this website, www.franco.tv. You can see our YouTube channel. You can see stories about us, that sort of thing. You can see 3D models of how these homes actually look and the factory videos of how they look. And or you can Google us at Franco Mobile Homes. So really appreciate being here, by the way. Thanks.
Perfect. Franco, this has been awesome. The links will be in the show notes. Listeners, I appreciate you listening. If you want to connect with either of us, feel free to reach out. We would love to talk with you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care.